Shalom, friends. As we entering this special time in God's calendar and in human history, the time that God has given Israel the Torah. It is called in Hebrew Chag Matan Torah. But as I explained to you earlier, there is another name for this day. It is called the Night of the Bride. Here we are, spending nearly 50 days after the Passover season and the Night of the Bride publication for the very first time will be available in 13 language for the bride to come, and as it says in the book of Song, to let her voice be heard. So we invite you to two significant dates that you need to be aware of. Date number one, May 22nd. This Friday, May 22nd, we will start to make the Night of the Bride Siddur available for free download on this special website. You will be able to go there in 13 different languages. If you speak English, Spanish, Italian, German, Dutch, or many other languages, and you will be able to get the full publication right there. It has four distinct parts that I would like to bring it to your attention. Part number one is called the prayers of the bride and the commentary that explain to us what the bride is praying for. The bride is praying for a groom, and the groom is the Messiah of Israel. I took upon myself to write this commentary for you to understand the significance of Shavuot this year. Part number two is the Torah reading for Shavuot. Exodus chapter 19, Exodus chapter 20, the 10 Commandments, and of course, Matthew chapter 5 and Acts chapter 2. All of the scriptures in one place as part of one publication. Number three, we have also added from the Talmud tractate Bikurim, the full tractate, when you will learn why Yeshua is called our first fruits. You will learn together with us and with Rabbi Bernstein, who wrote a full messianic commentary on this. And number four, last but not least, a full messianic commentary, verse by verse, word by word, on the book of fruit. We have taken all four pieces and we have put it into this publication that is going to be available starting Friday to a free download. Why? Because you are the bride. You are made up of the bride, Jew and Gentile, and God says to the bride, let me hear your voice. And we invite the entire world, wherever you are, whatever your background or ethnicity is, to make your voice heard and known during this season. This is the time, friends. On May 29th, everything stopped for the night of the bride, starting Friday, 10 p.m. Central. Everything stopped, and we're going to have a worship event from Israel, which will lead us for 26 anointed speakers who will bring us a word about the bride. But at midnight, everything will stop, and you will open the Night of the Bride Siddur, and you will be able to join the cantor and the entire world to call upon the groom and says, I am ready. Right at midnight, we invite you to be part of this historic prophetic event. Africa, Asia, Europe, South America, North America, Australia, and of course Zion. Let us get ready together. This is the time. We have seen miracle after miracle in putting together this publication. So many people worked on it. This publication belongs to all of us. And that's why it's given to you completely for free. Because the bride is made up of each and every one of us. God bless you. And I can't wait to see you May 29th to the Night of the Bride. Go download it and let your friends know to come and download it. Shalom to you and many blessings. Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and Boker Tov, good morning. It is my special time that I love more than anything time, the Friday, right before the Shabbat, to be here with you. And this is obviously not a regular Shabbat, not a regular, we're in Rosh Chodesh, we're coming to Shavuot, and we have a very special guy here with us. Pastor Mark Biltz is in the house this morning. And I am so excited, Pastor Biltz. First of all, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm excited by what God is doing. You know, as we are turn on the Night of the Bride and open it at 1:30, almost 2 a.m. in the morning, we open it. I'm looking and see where the number of downloads is exploding right now. And you know what is surprising to me?
What's that?
Russian is number 2.
Wow.
It's passing Spanish world, which is absolutely incredible. And
that's great.
I wanted to take a moment today to bring you into this broadcast. Friends, if you don't know what's happening, we opened the Night of the Bride download for the world. 9. As Shabbat come in, we're going to have a special broadcast, and we are going to launch it in Portuguese. So the Portuguese release is right as Shabbat come in. Right after Shabbat, Motzai Shabbat, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and India, all coming online. This is amazing. And I like it because I'm like you, Pastor Mark. I am looking around, seeing what God is doing. I'm looking at the portion, at the Torah portion of the week. And I said, God, what are you telling us? Because God calendar perfectly, even in the way it works with us today. And I just got off the phone from Africa. So I want to tell you and the audience what is happening. It's really, actually, really amazing. We're printing in Harare. Now the printing has started in Harare. About 1,000 books going to Berengwa and Gutu. Those are the main Jewish villages. They are in the book. They are literally living in the book of Bamidbar. You're in the wilderness and there's nothing there. And here we are entering to the book of Bamidbar. And it's almost done in the book of Bamidbar. Midbar, from the word the davar, speaking about Mashiach. But the book of Bamidbar seeing more miracles than any other book in this journey of Israel. And they wrote me this morning, and I want to read it to everybody, what just came across. And they say this, because we actually missed the deadline, and I hope everybody hear this. This is what they sent me right now. Word for word. The printing house has to go out of their way to have this work done according to our timelines. This by itself is a great miracle. This is what they wrote me this morning. So I was thinking about this. We are in a season that we're going to start seeing why we see a lot of bad things happen. But isn't this also a season when we go see greater miracles that is happening right now in the body of Messiah? To me, to have this publication done in 50 days in 13 languages is a miracle. To be able to go to the wilderness and to deliver it is a miracle. To see Russian speakers all over the world who are standing now and say, I want to join ourselves to the house of Israel, is a miracle. And I want to recognize here in public today that every non-Jew that returning back to the covenant is a miracle. They are a miracle. So talk to me for a moment about this season. How do you see this season in terms of miracle, miraculous, the supernatural that God is doing? What do you see from your side I'm curious. I hear from you.
Well, thank you, Rabbi Shapira, for allowing me to be a part of this with you. And to me, as you very well know, they say the Torah was given in the wilderness because no one owned it, which meant it was for everyone, Jew and Gentile.
Amen. Amen.
And we see non-Jews all over the world during our broadcasts that are joining. And to me, that's what's exciting. It's all about in the wilderness, as you said. And even in the Song of Songs, we find the bride leaning upon her beloved in the wilderness, coming out. It's quite fascinating.
So look, we are all in the wilderness because Mashiach is yet to come. So my question to you, for our viewers, those who are watching, if we're still in the spiritual galut and in exile, because Mashiach yet to come, what is it that the bride have to do today? We're counting, I don't like the term counting down, we're counting up. We're counting up, right? What is the bride have to do in the wilderness?
Well, one of the things that's interesting to me is, if you remember, at the foot of Mount Sinai, God instructed Moses to have everyone wash their clothes, to be ready for the third day. And what's interesting is in Ephesians, the bride also was told to be washed and to be sanctified. And so for me, the counting up of the Omer is a process of sanctification, growing closer and closer to him.
So number one, I'm hearing from you, the bride have to be sanctified. And I love the way it says in the book of Acts, it says, what are you waiting for? Go and wash up. So I love these words. What are you waiting for? So with that being said, look, you are probably one of the most well-known figures in the non-Jewish world in bringing this message of returning. What are the nations waiting for? What's the holdup?
I think they're waiting for proper instruction. I think that's one thing. They need good teachers. I think they want to grab a hold of the hem of the skirt of a Jew who wants to follow Torah, who wants to lead people in a way that is correct.
Now, this was an interesting week. There was a lot of controversy about a lot of things that are being said or not being said. So it's important to get it on the record. Where do you see Messianic Judaism fit in this preparation of the nations? If I am to say, here's the nations, here is Orthodox Judaism, when I say normative Judaism, where does Pastor Mark Biltz, where do you see the prophetic place of Messianic Judaism? This is an important question.
Well, I think within Messianic Judaism, there's a lot of divisions. And so for me, when we say Messianic Judaism, I want to say that applies to Jews who love the Torah and they want to follow what God has asked them to do, and they want to bring others. Let me give you a verse. Let me give you an example. I can't help, one of my favorite verses is Deuteronomy 4.
Wait, before you give us the verse, guys, run and share this broadcast. This is what I call real talk, heart-to-heart talk on things that apply to all of us. So hit the share, hit the like, YouTube, Facebook. This is spectacular broadcast for all of us as we're preparing for Shavuot. Go ahead, Pastor Biltz.
Well, as you know, the very word mitzvot has within it a root word which means to join, to team up, kind of like we're taking God's yoke upon us and we're joining him in his work. It's what he does. And we want to join Dad in what he's doing. And listen to, how we're supposed to cleave, husband and wife, they're to cleave together. Well, listen to Deuteronomy 4:4. It says, but you that did cleave to the Lord your God, you're the ones who are alive, every one of you this day. And then in verse 5, it says, behold, God says, I've taught you statutes and judgments. Moses is speaking. I've taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that you can go into the land and possess it. Now look at verse 6. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom. This is your understanding in the sight of who? All the nations. What is going to happen? They're going to hear these statutes and say, boy, these sure are dumb laws. We don't want to do that. No, the nations are going to say, wow, what wise and fantastic commandments and statutes you have. For what nation is there so great, has God so near to them, as the Lord our God is in all the things we call upon him for? And so for me, God wanted Torah to be the light to the nations, for the nations. What good is it, is the Torah as a light to the nations, if the nations are supposed to put it under a bushel?
Okay, we have to unpack this for a minute. This is first of all, I found it interesting you quoted Deuteronomy 4:4. It does not use the word observe. If you look at the Hebrew, is the word dvekim. Dvekim, in modern Hebrew, the word davek is actually super glue. So it's a super glue. That's the Hebrew. Yeah, so he's saying to Israel here, I don't want you to keep or observe. I want you to be part. If you're glued to something, it's talking about the lifestyle. It's becoming a lifestyle of Torah and mitzvot. From what you are seeing right now, and I think I know your answer, but I want you to tell us what you're saying. Is the nations ready to return to the covenant of Sinai under Mashiach, under the newness? Are they ready? Where are we in this readiness process right now?
Well, I think we are very close. But as we've talked in other broadcasts, God's waiting for a mature bride. And so he wants no one left behind, and he wants everyone to come, and he wants a complete bride that without spot, wrinkle, or blemish. And so this is why it's so important as we prepare for this coming Shavuot. And there was the mixed multitude at Sinai. God has always been interested. He loves the whole world that he gave his only begotten son. He wants everyone to cleave to him.
So, you might not go and like my analogy, but I'm going to analogy that you're probably not going to like very much. And it's okay if you disagree with me. It's very Jewish. But in Sinai, we're praying for Moshe to come down, right? We're reenacting Exodus 19 and 20, Moshe coming down from the Torah. Let's fast forward for a moment. In Exodus chapter 19, God gave a promise to Israel, and he said, you will be Mamlechet Kohanim Goy Kadosh.
And kingdom of priests.
So if I understand you correctly, and if I can add my own spin to it, maybe the nations waiting for somebody to come down from heaven to bring them the Torah today so that they will be sanctified. And that's, to me, the Kohanim should be today Messianic Jews who come into the nations below to bring them to this covenant. That's the way I am seeing it. In a way, Moshe, Mashiach, and Israel are one and the same. I'm talking about physical, Moshe, Mashiach, all of Israel is Kohanim. And we as Messianic Jews have to bring down this Torah to the nations. What would you say to that?
Well, I like it. I think it's interesting that is they had to be ready for the third day. And you go to Hosea 6:1-2, it talks about on the third day, he will come down and we will live in his sight. I think there's some definite parallels. And then I believe that the Kohanim need to be Jewish people.
So Messianic Jews, if you are to specify to me today, because we're going to talk about the Gentiles here in a minute. We're talking this entire week about the preparation of the bride, Shavuot, 6 of Sivan, etc., etc. But to prepare the bride has to be dressed. How critical is the bride to be dressed?
Very critical.
With the covenants.
Very critical. Very critical. This is why in the Gospels, people came to the wedding, but there was someone who didn't have a wedding garment on. And he said, get this person out of here. And this basically also is based from Zechariah. There's a prophecy that's very similar where it talks about how God is going to punish even the king's children okay, who are dressed in strange apparel. And so we need to make sure that we are dressed in the right apparel if we're going to be at the wedding. That's why the bride has to prepare her garments.
So I think people really misunderstood you a lot, because a lot of people say, yeah, I'm dressed. All what I need is Jesus and I'm dressed. I don't need anything else. And that is a very, very, how should I say it? If the wedding is in Israel and it's belong to the Jewish people, and Paul says in Romans chapter 9, verse 1 through 5, that the covenants belong to Israel, and Israel going to sign the ketuvah. Well, we need to understand what is the ketuvah is, and the ketuvah is the covenant, the Torah. So would you say that it is critical for Christians to return to the Torah, perhaps not for their salvation, but rather for the preparation of the wedding, which is speaking about corporal salvation?
I think it's, first, if we come to the wedding in Jerusalem, I want to know if part of our garments is a mask because of COVID. I'm kidding. No, I think when we understand Torah means instruction, God's instruction. And to me, why would anybody not want to be instructed in proper behavior?
Yeah, that's the question. So look, Messianic Judaism have a unique role. I believe so. But also, we cannot neglect the fact that Judaism is opening now to the Gentiles much more. How do you view that non-Messianic Jews starting to teach Gentiles Torah? What is your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's wonderful. And I know there's a big divide within Judaism as well. Many Jews think that the Torah is not for Gentiles, Orthodox Jews. But then there's many other Orthodox Jews who say it's high time to take Torah to the nations. And that's what they're wanting to do. And to me, that's just fantastic that there are...
You are actually hearing that by Orthodox rabbis.
I'm not going to say who, but literally just the other day, an Orthodox rabbi told me because tourism has stopped and they're not coming to Israel, Israel needs to be taking the Torah to the nations. And I just was so excited. An Orthodox rabbi told me that, literally.
Do you
want me to help them.
Do you understand that that's the fullness of the Jews?
I love it.
What you just described is what Romans call the fullness of the Jews. When a Jew teach the Gentiles Torah, he becomes full, because the Gentile then will go back and will be able to connect the dot to Yeshua, even to Israel. And that's just amazing.
That's El Shaddai's whole ministry in one sense. One of the main focus is to help the Jewish people fulfill their mission, because when they fulfill their mission, they feel so much fuller. And so what I love is to have Orthodox Jewish rabbis come and speak on Zoom to El Shaddai or whatever, and they love it. They get a kick because why? They're fulfilling their very mission in taking Torah to the Gentiles. Now, of course, we're going to disagree on some things, but we have to learn how to disagree without being disagreeable.
And we have to make a distinction. You believe that Yeshua is the Messiah 100%.
100%.
And nothing is going to change that.
Nothing is going to change that. I literally have had an Orthodox rabbi stay in my house for 3 days. He koshered my pan so he could eat in my waterfall. When we sat down, we would have discussions for 3 days about the virgin birth and all of this and discussing things. And we're still friends, and that's been years ago. And so we need to learn how to do that.
So how do you see dual covenant? How do you see dual covenant in this thing?
Well, there's only one covenant.
No, those who think, well, the Jews have Moses, the rest of us have Jesus. Do the Jews need to recognize Yeshua as the Messiah ultimately?
I think the Jews definitely need to recognize Yeshua as one of the names of the Yud-Heh Vav-Heh as the Messiah.
So let's talk about this, because you were also very strong. I've heard message after message by you. Also
no way.
Saying, well, this is great, but we need to make sure we bring the real Yeshua.
Right.
Not not the false Yeshua, which is another form of replacement theology. I want to give you a second because this is really important for everybody to understand this. What did you actually mean by this? Those who have not heard your messages, I encourage everybody to go and listen to them. You expound on this so well. How far have we gone in replacing this Yeshua? How far have we went of replacing Yeshua of the first century?
Wow. I mean, we are so far off the mark. You know, even if you're only 1% off, after 1,000 miles, you're way off. And after 2,000 years, we started off wrong. Even the Apostle John was kicked out of the church. I show that in everyone's Bible. They don't see it. But here we've replaced the festivals with pagan festivals. You know, we've replaced all of the holidays, the names of God and the names of the apostles. We've replaced so many things. I don't think he would even recognize himself.
You know, there's a story in the Midrash that speaks about that. It actually says that when Mashiach comes the second time, Israel still does not recognize him because he looks so deformed and foreign.
Well, see, if you remember, Joseph's brothers didn't recognize him because he looked Egyptian. He spoke Egyptian. And it wasn't until Messiah revealed, or Joseph revealed himself, that they recognized him. And so I believe that we need to help by taking off Yeshua's Egyptian clothes and presenting an authentic Yeshua to the Jewish people.
Okay, so we have right now a very good crowd online. And many people who are not Jewish ask the question also. We call these Shabbat words. You know what is Sabbath words? It's words you cannot go to the grocery with. They said, Pastor Mark, give me a formula. What does it mean to me? I am not Jewish. I don't have a Jewish milkman. I don't have a DNA that is Jewish. What does it mean for me to take off the Egyptian clothes? What do I need to do? What would he say?
I would think that you would need to be using a vocabulary, just like if I were to enter the medical field, I would have to use medical words that I maybe don't know. I'd have to learn them so I could communicate to people. If I'm going to be in any field, I need to learn the vocabulary of that field to properly communicate. And so for me, we need to understand how to communicate properly. We need to learn the word. This involves study. That's why we have to study to show ourselves approved. We need to begin to understand the concept of the terms, because one word can mean so many different things to different people.
Okay, I take Jesus, I make him Yeshua, or I take Christ and I make him Mashiach. But I don't think that's enough.
No, you need to do what he said.
That's the part.
That's step one. That is just the baby steps.
Take me to step 2.
Okay, now we need to walk as he walked. I think that's, before we can run, we got to learn to walk. And if we're going to walk hand in hand, Messiah says in Matthew 11, I think 29, to take my yoke upon you. Okay, and so what we have to do, that's the next thing, is once we're, in kindergarten, now we learn to tie our shoes. Okay, we got to get up and walk hand in hand with him and do what he did.
So, look, we have this picture in Shavuot of not just the Bnei Israel, but those who have joined themselves to Bnei Israel, who are there to receive the Torah. What does it look like? A Gentile who is not Jewish according to the flesh, receiving Torah. What is that? Can you give me the prototype? What does it look like? What does it smell like? Because this is such an important conversation and people need to know. And they also ask the question, how should I become an Orthodox Jew? How far do I go? Because some might have the impression that you say, hey, go go Judaize yourself and convert. And I don't think this is
No, I'm right.
right.
No, I am not a Judaizer. I am. We all have our own DNA in one sense, but when we're born again, that's when we have that a similar DNA. And what we have to look at the Torah, the way I see looking at the Torah, is like case law. Okay, we have to look at what God's laws were. One of God's laws were that the farmers could not cut the corners of their field. They have to leave it for the poor, okay, the widows, the orphans. Well, when I see that law of God, am I supposed to go, I'm not a farmer. I don't have to give to the widows, the orphans. I mean, that's legalism. But when you look at it in terms of, wow, look at God's heart, even though I'm not a farmer, God, I see where your heart is. I'm going to follow your heart and I'm going to give to the widows. I can't go, well, that's not the 10 Commandments. I don't have to do it. God wants us to look at our heart. Look at the bribe. He says, don't take a bribe. He says, the judges shouldn't take bribes. Well, I'm not a judge, so I can take a bribe. That's legalism. If he had to list every occupation that couldn't take a bribe, it looked like our IRS tax laws. And so what God wants us to do is to, as a case law, look at what the principles he's laying out. And then we say, wow, we have a God who wants to take care of the widows and the orphans and pay their employees on time. One of the laws was these day laborers, you had to give them money at the end of their wages at the end of the day. Now, what am I supposed to say? What would my employees think if I said, I'm not under the law, I don't need to pay you, I'll pay you when I feel like it? Well, I mean, come on. We have to look at the principles of what God's heart is, and then we pursue it however we can within our own capacity. In Deuteronomy 4, when the nations came to learn his statutes, that did not mean they could go build a temple in their nation. It's one law, but within that one law, there's laws for women, laws for judges, laws for kings, laws for priests. I can't do those. I'm not a king. I'm not a priest. I'm not a judge. But that doesn't mean there wasn't one all-encompassing Torah, and I need to find where I fit in. So non-Jews say, okay, well, let's read the Torah. Let's fall in love with it because it's God's instructions. And then we glean from that what applies to me and how can I honor God? Not for my salvation, but as my dad, I want to do what he wants.
You know, it's interesting. I looked again at Deuteronomy 4:4, the verse that we are looking at today. And even here in this text, it's very interesting. He didn't say, look, I have given you those Torah. He says, Re'eh, which, it's like an exclamation. If you look at the cantillation mark, there is an exclamation, but there is a stop. So when you sing it, you will sing it and stop. It's almost like, look, pause, Re'eh, pause. And what is the next word after the Re'eh? He's not the word give or this. He's the word limadeti. The word limati, lelamed, that's where we get the word talmid from too. Lomed, talmid, limud, right? And when you teach somebody, he's talking about teaching them from the inside out.
Yes.
He didn't come down from heaven. You will do this. No. This is Moses' personal diary, right? Deuteronomy, the book of Deuteronomy. And he's saying here, hey, I want to teach you the meaning of the mitzvot from the inside out. And I think that is really what you're saying to us today. But if one learned like a little monkey and just to imitate like a parrot, it can lead to legalism.
Right.
But if one learned the meaning behind the mitzvot, then not only that is beautify the bride, but it allows us to take upon ourselves the garment of Mashiach. This is basically what I'm hearing from you.
Yes, and what I'm going to be teaching on this very soon, your Night of the Bride, is the relationship that we have with our Creator, because there's a lot of different relationships. He's our King, he's our judge, he's our brother, he's our Redeemer, he's our shepherd. And when you look at the Song of Songs, going back directly to what you said, the relationship, while he is our King, really is to be one of a shepherd. It's got to be from the heart. It's got to be from the love. And the Song of Songs, I believe, really is about Israel wanted a king like all the other nations. And God was so rejected by that. And what the Song of Songs is about is the bride leaving a human king and coming back to him as their shepherd king who loves them.
Yeah, I agree with that actually 100%. But look, if this is the case, and you paint a very clear picture, why do you believe that there is so much aversion to teach Gentiles Torah? Even in the Messianic circle, it's quite divisive. Why is it then? If this is a mandate that God for Jews to be all Lagoim, to teach Torah, why do we struggle with that in the greater body of Messiah? Can you hypothesize on that?
I think we live in a lawless society. And Torah represents laws from the king that we need to abide by. And so people that don't want to say, you're not the boss of me, they want to be able to have a God they can control but not have to submit to.
Wow. It's a shame, though. I really believe that God raised Messianic Judaism to marry, so to speak, the spirit and the bride together. The Torah.
That's spirit and truth. That's worshiping him in spirit and truth.
And I also look at the book of Revelation, chapter 15, when we are finishing the wedding, the Song of Moses and the Song of the Lamb. It doesn't say the Song of the Lamb and the Song of Moses. It says the Song of Moses and the Song of the Lamb. And I'm looking at all of this together, and I really sense that there's a real dividing line now inside the Messianic body.
Yes.
Those who want to sing to Mashiach without Moses. But when I read the commentary by a great rabbi who came to know him, the Mashiach, his name is Yechiel Tzvi Lichtenstein, he explains something interesting, and he quoting the Midrash, that when Mashiach come, you know the song, and when the saint come marching. Well, it's interesting. The Midrash talked about Mashiach coming and the saint joining him, but the Midrash says that the saints that are joining him are Moses, the prophets, all the tzaddikim. That is the saints who are joining his choir in those days. So I think it's rather naive to think that Mashiach will come and Moses will not be side by side to him. I think it's dangerous. And then all those people will stand up and say, "What, Moses? What are you doing here? I thought we're not under you, under the Torah anymore. It's not important." And my question would be then, if this is the case, why in Malachi, in the great and terrible day, in the last verse, it's warned us not to forget Moses.
That's right.
So here's the next question. Then we're going to take some questions from the audience because the chat room going crazy. They all want to ask some questions. So friends, if you want to ask questions today, type them into the chat. We'll go and get to as many of them as we can in a minute. So type them in right now. But Mark, if this is the case, and the bride have to quickly return, quickly wash up, quickly come back and prepare, and it's ready to say, Naaseh v'nishma, we will do and we will listen, as Israel does. And Israel have to bring it down. I really believe that. Israel have to bring a piece of the gospel down, the contextualization, down to the nations. And the nation need to learn. Have you ever heard Texans speaking Hebrew?
Y'all, shalom, y'all.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So the accent of the nations, the spiritual accent, is difficult to adapt because we are drowned. We are drowned ourselves in 2,000 years of Christianity. To break through this means that you will have to learn a new language. You almost have to reread the Bible in another set of eyes. You have to start again. a lot of Christians that God opened their eyes to that become very angry against the church and nasty. Number one, don't do it. Number one, I say don't do it. The church has done some good things.
Yes.
Just missing the context.
Yes.
But my question to you, how does one from the nations gain this accent, this spiritual accent of Song of Song 2:14? Let me hear your voice. Let me hear your voice. I'm asking this question because so many people are ready for this journey. They're already Bamidbar, they're going, but the Bamidbar is a very scary place. Some ended up in Chabad, some ended up in Orthodox Judaism, some ended up in some Hebrew roots movement, some ended up in, in all sola scriptura. A lot of people end up in very strange places. If you are to give advice to people how to stay on the way, the truth, in this journey to Zion, up to Jerusalem, what advice would you give?
To listen to my teaching this next Friday night for the Night of the Bride. That's what I'm going to be talking about. The Song of Songs is read on Passover, but it's to lead us up the mountain to Shavuot. And the whole thing, I believe, is the journey of the bride growing in maturity. At the beginning, she's very immature. In the first chapter, I'm going to go through the whole Song of Songs, almost verse by verse, showing you how she grows. I mean, her tongue says, my beloved is mine, and then I'm his. And then it changes around to, well, now it's no longer is my beloved is mine first. It's I'm my beloved's first, and then my beloved is mine. And then she matures even more. And she goes, my beloved, I am my beloved's and his desire is toward me. She doesn't make any claim on him. And so we see this progression where in the second chapter, he comes and he says in the second chapter, arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. For lo, the winter is past. The rain is over and gone. She went into hibernation. She slept all winter. And he says, wait, when the rain is gone, winter's over. And the church has been asleep for so many years. And he's telling the body of the Messiah to get up. And then he says, let me hear your voice. And guess what? How she responds when he first says, let me hear your voice. She says, take a hike. You do the work. Go upon the mountains of Bether. I'm going to stay here in this beautiful house. Here the groom is looking in her eyes and he says, you have dove's eyes. And she looks back at him and says, hey, look at this. Our couch is green. The beams are of cedar. The rafters of fir. She's caught up with what she gets, not with him. He's consumed with her, but she's consumed with all of that, with the temple, with the house, just like in Jeremiah, the temple. We're fine. We got the temple. So what happens in the next chapter? She says, first he says, our bed is green. And the very next chapter, it's now my bed. It's no longer our bed, it's my bed. And she says, I sought him whom my soul loves, but I couldn't find him. Because he wanted her to leave the temple, the house, and go out and do the work of the harvest, but she just wanted to stay within the four walls. And then in chapter 5, here she's asleep. He comes back again and he knocks, open to me, my love. And she goes, what? I got to put my shoes on? I've got to take my coat off? It's just horrible. And so you see this progression. And then finally at the end, she gets up early. She's in the field. She's working. And so the whole story is a progression of the festivals.
I love what you're saying. Look at what I pulled. I want everybody understand that what Pastor Biltz is saying is from the Holy Spirit. How do I know it? Because it's also agree with what we pray every day. Look at this. You use this word progression. Did it dawn on you, Pastor Biltz? This is the Song of Moses. We pray this every day in the Siddur, on Shacharit weekday and on Shabbat. And I want you to pay attention to this. The last prayer. It says, Rock of Israel, arise to the help of Israel and liberate, as you have spoken, Yehuda and Israel. Our Redeemer Adonai, Master of Legion is his name, the Holy One of Israel. Blessed are you, Adonai, who redeemed Israel. Wait, why do we ask him to arise
Kuma if he already redeemed Israel? He doesn't say will redeem Israel. He say he already redeemed Israel. Why? Because the redemption process is continuous. The Geulah is continuous. In the journey, this journey, as you talk about progression, is continuous. So when we look at Geulah, it's not some event that just going to come and it's over. Geulah is happening. The Geulah is happening as we speak right now. The Geulah coming to the nations. We're reading in Isaiah 11 about the ingathering of the nations, right? From the four corners of the earth, of the exiles. Well, this is not just a light switch that's happening. It's happening as we speak, Pastor Biltz. And this bride, as the bride getting ready, step by step, it is that the Geulah is being fulfilled in front of our eyes. So I want us to think about the redemption, the Geulah, as rather as a process than just as a one-time event. And the Geulah of the nations here, returning to the root, is not just one-time event. Pastor Biltz, on 6th of Sivan, we're going to give an opportunity to everybody to read the 10 Commandments, stand up, and have a conversion of the heart. Simply said, I'm here. I'm ready to join the house of Israel. Lord, allow me to come on in through Messiah to partake of the covenants of Israel. Is that the end point? No, but it is a process. How key is for the process to go through the nations right now in the salvation of Israel. Connect the dot for us. Why this is so critical. Why you're so passionate about the nations. There are those who just want to reach the Jewish people, and you say, wait a second. The nations are a key part of this equation. Connect these dots for us.
I really believe that the nations are a key part because God has always wanted the nations to play a part. The nations in Isaiah are the ones who carry the Jewish people back to Aliyah, back to Israel, as it is. And the one thing that I think is so important is you can have the truth, but not a heart. And you can have a heart and not the truth. And to me, what is so fascinating is how the different relationships God has with us. And the biggest relationship I believe that God wants to have with us, one of them, is as a shepherd. Did you know God was the shepherd of Israel before he was proclaimed the king of Israel? God was called the shepherd of Israel. And get hold of this. It has to do with the very verse the very phrase you were talking about. In Genesis 49, he speaks to Joseph and he says, the shepherd, the rock of Israel. The rock of Israel. And right before it, he's called the shepherd. Because when we may have a ruler that we submit to, but it's so much better when you love him. And this is why the same thing with the husband in Ephesians, love your wives. Too often the husband wants to rule over the wife. Oh, these are rules, but I tell you what, God has always wanted it to be from the heart. And I believe the people that reject Torah, the Messianic Jews even, who might reject the Torah for Gentiles, is because they don't have the right relationship to it. Just like a little kid in the fence. The little child hates the fence. He wants to play in the street. But as he gets older, he loves the fence. What changed? The fence didn't change. The attitude toward the fence changed when they had a kid. And so for me, the Torah is the fence. And we either love the fence because we know it's for protection, or we hate the fence because we want to do things that are not for our good.
Friend, this is an incredible broadcast. 120 cities worldwide right now tuned in. So blessed. We got to take some of your questions. I see so many very good questions. So we're going to go and take them one by one and see what we can do in the next couple of minutes in answering those questions. Pastor Biltz, let's go. The bride is getting ready.
Yay!
And I'm glad that I'm part of it and you're part of it, and each one of us doing his part in honor and integrity in preparing this bride. Baruch Hashem, because it's a big job. It's a huge job in doing this. So here we go. Let's start and see what we got in front of us. We're going to go first to Sola Scriptura, who asked the question: is the bride divine as Mashiach is? Okay, I'm going to take the first stab at this, and then Pastor Biltz can answer this. There is a passage that we see in the book of Jeremiah, Sola Scriptura, if you want to make yourself a note, verse 5. It says, and 6. It's important to read both verses together. They say, see, a time is coming, declare the Lord, that I will raise up a true branch of David line, Mashiach. He will reign as a king and shall prosper, and he shall do what is just and right in the land. In those days, Judah will be delivered, and Israel shall dwell secure. And this is the name in which he shall be called, Adonai Tzidkenu. There is a question in the Talmud, in Bava Kama 75, if I recall. What is the meaning by his name, Adonai Tzidkenu? And here's the answer that they give. In those days, when his name is Yeshua, not Adonai Tzidkenu. Why it says Adonai Tzidkenu? Because it represents his character, his attribute. And it says that in those days, 3 will be called by this name, Adonai Tzidkenu. Mashiach, the Tzadikim, and Yerushalayim. All be called. Why? Because the DNA of Mashiach will be rubbing on us. So will we be divine? We will be in our fullness, and we will be in a perfect unity with the Messiah. So it depends how you define divinity, but we will be one. We will be in complete achdut. We will be in complete unity with him. So in some way, I could argue that we are becoming divine because we're in their fullness. Just like when Moshe Rabbeinu came down with the tablets before he saw the golden calf, Chazal says that the world was fully rectified for a split second before he broke the tablets. So things will come to the fullness. You can think about us coming to our fullness in case of divinity, if that's help you to understand it. Pastor Biltz, you want to add anything?
Well, I think it's interesting. You don't see it in English, you only see it in Hebrew, where God says, I am holy, therefore you're to be holy. Our holiness is different than his holiness. There's a letter missing, a vav missing. Right. And so in English, the word, we're to be holy as God is holy, but our holiness is diminished. And it goes back to exactly what you said, is how do you define the word divine? Mormons believe they're going to be gods. Okay, there are some people out there who believe, they are God or divine. And so in one sense, humanity can never be divine in the sense of being uncreated. God was uncreated. So if you say divinity as never having a beginning, then mankind can never, who hasn't had a beginning, become uncreated. So in that sense, if you define divine as having no beginning, man can never achieve that. If you define it as being like God, as you're saying, but it'll be diminished because it's not as the same as God, we are to be like him. It says we shall see him as he is. So it depends on how you define that likeness. If we're in our fullness, then we're like him, but we'll never be as him.
I love it. And this is the way I will define divinity along the same line. Completion of the wedding, returning to the garden, completion what Adam started. That is as simple as that. By the way, Pastor Biltz, I think our Spanish friends were very angry that they were in third place. Spanish numbers spiked up huge while the broadcast is taking place. Spanish is number 2. Russian, wake up, you're number 3 right now. And we just hit 60 countries, downloads from 60 countries for this publication. Let's go to the next question. Ricky, thank you for your question. Here's a question for you. I'll let you take this one. Why are we commanded to love Hashem? And why do theologians discuss the prime commandment?
Did you want to take a stab at that first? Or do you want me to jump in?
Go ahead. I'll give you the first stab in that, and then I will add.
Sure. I think what's fascinating too is the word command. Well, how can you command love? You love me. I think many people know that a command to love, almost in one sense, is an oxymoron. How can you command to love? But I believe the reason why God says that is it's the same reason as the sacrificial system was put in place. Parents love their children far more than children love their parents. And the reason why parents love their children more is because they're the ones who are spending all the money on the kids. The kids, they're investing in the kids. And God invested so much in us. He loved us. And he wants us to love him back. He wanted us to bring sacrifices, not because he wanted to see some cow killed, okay? He wanted us to bring the sacrifices because now we're investing something of ours into the relationship. And so basically what he wants us to do is invest in a relationship with him, to spend time with him, to do what he asks so we can see, wow, look at all the benefits by obeying him. Look at the blessings that are in obeying him. And it's for our good. I think that's what we have to realize. Everything he did is for our good. Even Job said, though he slay me, I'm still going to trust in him. Wow, now that's a powerful relationship.
Let's take this one here. You just perfect answer. I think I don't have anything to add to this one. Corolinda asked, do you think that these Jews who do not really want to teach us the Torah are either suspicious due to their persecution from them, as well as perhaps some arrogance? Okay, that's a tough question. That is a tough one. I am going to answer it in the most sensitive way I can. I think we all seen some of the podcasts this week by important figures in Messianic Judaism and their stance on teaching Gentiles Torah. I think we have two issues to deal with. Most of Messianic Jews came to know Messiah by Christians. It's true. A lot of them took upon themselves Christianity as a system. And I'm careful. I'm not saying that they're Christians. They're ethnically Jewish. But in terms of their ashkafa, the worldview, they've taken upon themselves Christianity as a system. So part of the issue is the system that you're connected to. If you're connected by the umbilical cord to the church, and that's where you nourish from, that's where you're going to go. And again, I don't want it to turn to something negative. Number two, a lot of Messianic Jews, especially in America, were raised with very little Judaism. Very little Judaism. It's the case. They can be cultural Jews. They can do certain things. They can know they're Jewish. They can even have a very strong Jewish culture, but it doesn't mean that they really understand Judaism. Well, people have tendency to be scared of something that they're not that good or not familiar with. And we have good people in academia. We have our PhDs and so forth, but it doesn't mean that one academic, he really understands Judaism. It doesn't make him really understand Judaism just because you're in the world of academia. So that's the way I would answer it. I don't know I don't want to speculate around arrogance. That's not my place to judge anybody. But I will say that we, take the Gentiles out, we as Messianic Jews are not comfortable for the most part. Again, I'm not going to say 100%, but for the most part, with the Torah. I'll give you an example. We started 2015 to bring Torahs to Israel. And Pastor Mark doesn't probably want me to say it, but I'll say it. El Shaddai was the number one supporter of all this work because they believe in the Torah and Mashiach together. And it was such an amazing thing to see Torahs in Israel in Messianic Jewish synagogues. And I was really surprised. The Orthodox Jews did not give us problem at all. I have none. Who gave us problem was the Messianic Jews, believe it or not, saying, what are you doing? Bring us under the law, under the Torah. So it was really, I don't want to get to details. I don't want you to feel sorry for us, but it was just a serious and terrible persecution by some of the largest, most respected Messianic ministries. How do we solve it? How do we fix it? We fix it by coming back, number one, to understand what our identity is Jews. What is the identity that we have as Jews? What God called us to be, our relationship that is eternal to the Torah. And in that regard, I'm probably much more siding with normative Judaism than Messianic Judaism. And I admit that. But I am a Messianic Jew. I want to make it very, very clear. But it's not black and white. Messianic Judaism have a lot of great things, and so is Orthodox Judaism. I have a lot of great things. And I guess our challenge as a Messianic movement is find the middle ground. First, we need to figure it out among ourselves. And then we can be effective ministers to the nations to bring them to the covenants of Israel. So we have a war now. Many don't want them in the covenants of Israel. Many believe that they are automatically in the covenant of Israel without renouncing and repenting. And that's very sad to me. It is very sad to me because some are gaining support because of that. Some simply believe in that, and that's their theology. All what I can say is this: we're Jewish, we're brothers. We need to work it out inside ourselves, within our movement, in humility and in love. And while we're getting our act together, Pastor Mark Biltz needs to continue to work and do what we as Messianic Jews are supposed to be doing, but failing to a degree. And I hope nobody will take my answer here and think I'm attacking any ministry. I'm not. This is a problem. We recognize it's a problem. It's a problem of theology, and it's also a problem in our understanding this season, this end time season. To me, it's very simple. If we don't teach them Torah, these Gentiles will go to Chabad, and they will convert without Yeshua, and we will lose them to the Messiah. It's as simple as that. So we're under tremendous pressure, tremendous attack right now. And as a ministry, but I'm not going to back down from this. If I give the Gentiles Yeshua without Torah, I'm a sinner, and I've done nothing. They're better off in the church. Pastor Biltz, do you want to add anything to this question? That's a tough one. I'm going to give you a minute to develop your thought on that one, because I think your perspective is critical.
Well, I think what's interesting is when it comes to Orthodox Jews, I asked an Orthodox Jew one time, how come they don't take Torah to the nations anymore? And his exact words were, because every time we do, they kill us. And it goes right back to what this questioner is saying. And then the other thing is perhaps some arrogance. Well, you can't paint everybody with a broad brush. This is what's so important. Everybody's different, all from their own life experiences that they've had. Sure, there is some arrogance. I do know we're in Washington State, and we had a Gentile, who wanted to attend a Messianic congregation in Chicago. He goes to the Messianic congregation, and they really treated him like someone who should not be there. What are you doing coming into our Messianic congregation? You're a Gentile. So he literally flew from Chicago all the way to Washington State just to attend our service. Absolutely loved it. He arrived on a Friday night, left on a Saturday, and he's been supporting us for about the last 10 years. And it's just like, I think these people are crazy, the Messianic Jews that don't allow Gentiles in, but there's some Messianic Jews that do allow Gentiles in. And so the whole thing is, you can't paint all of Messianic Judaism with a broad brush. They're all over the ballpark, I'm finding.
We need to get our act together as a Messianic Jews. And I really pray that, even this being obviously we all saw the post and this and that and going on, the bottom line is God is going to use even stones to fulfill his purpose. If Messianic Judaism will not do it with the Gentiles, God is going to continue to raise others. And we'll do it. And El Shaddai is certainly one of them. We do our very best. but I don't have the audience that like El Shaddai would have, because I wear a kippah on my head, and it's also difficult with the Christian audience. So I think we need to root for one another, to honor one another. That's why I'm so happy when Mark succeed in El Shaddai. I'm very happy about this, because it's mean that the Tikkun is happening, and we're one step closer. So we just need to continue to understand that, and not to try to build empires.
Right.
Just honor one another in this thing. That's the bottom line. Here we go. Let's go to the next question. Is the Holy One of Israel in the Jewish Siddur, Yeshua? It's not Yahashua, it's Yeshua. And the answer is yes, 100% yes. I'm holding in my hand the Avat Olam Siddur. This is a Siddur. I don't know if you can see it. I have all commentary, all talking about the Geulah, the redemption, the house of Israel. Put it to your hand. Put it to your hand. I know we're crazy with the amount of questions. We're going to go a little bit quicker and take those questions together. Let me go. Oh, that's a good one. How many brides are there? Pastor Biltz, you want to answer that one?
Oh, I'd love to answer that one. First off, let me just throw this in. When it comes to the 10 virgins, the 5 wise and the 5 foolish, none of them are the bride. They just get to attend to the wedding. Okay, so he's not marrying 5 brides. He's only marrying 1 bride. But what's fascinating is, in Revelation, the bride is the heavenly city, Jerusalem, coming down. That's the bride, is the heavenly Jerusalem. But guess what? It's made up of many stones. And each one of us are the stones that make up this heavenly city.
I agree 100%. The bride has a name, Israel. Never change, never will change. The bride is called Israel, as it made up of Jew and Gentile. Can you imagine a bride without her hairdo, or without her makeup, or without her light dress? All of us is important. And isn't it interesting, Pastor Biltz, that Parashat Bamidbar, starting with count everybody who is ready. Now, have you noticed that, Pastor Biltz? It doesn't say count everybody that above the age of 20. It's a bad translation. You love the Hebrew language, and pay attention to this. You say Yotzei Tzava, those who graduate from some sort of academy. There is a remez here. Yotzei Tzava, those who are spiritually ready. So God said, from those who are spiritually ready, count all of them. This is the model of the IDF, by the way. Everybody age of 20, go. So I would say everybody who spiritually graduated need to be a brick. Can you imagine a house without a brick? It's impossible. So we need these bricks, and we need you, and there is one bride. This is Naomi. Naomi is one of our most wonderful people. Naomi's father, Yochanan, had his bar mitzvah in the age of 80. In Yerushalayim with me. They live in Yerushalayim. And Naomi, make sure that your dad have the German Night of the Bride in his hands. Let's go to Naomi. What will happen with those from the nations, from congregation who will not hear to come back, and to be regrafted improperly, I think she's trying to say. You want to take that one?
Well, you go first. I want to make sure I understand the question. So you go first.
I think what she's asking is, there is a prophetic call to return. And she's asking, what happened to those today? In the church, who refuse to return today. What happened to them? I said it before, and I say it again, but this time I'll be as clear as I can. God, in the final battle, is taking a battle against the fifth exile, called the exile of Edom. Edom is a spirit, is not a physical country. Mashiach's seat at the gate of Rome represent a system. Anybody that partake of this system will be destroyed. And that's why this time is critical. Is God going to destroy Christians? That's not what I'm saying. Please hear me. He's going to destroy the system. He's going to destroy a system called Islam. He's going to destroy a system called Christianity. Because he says that he wants to develop a new system. And that's what it says in Zechariah 14:6. It says, in that day the Lord will be one, and his name will be one. So anybody who doesn't want to be oneness with God, new world order. Yeah, there is a new world order coming. It's God's, not COVID-19, but God new world order. So I would say to you, Naomi, is number one, we need to encourage people to return today. That's why this publication has been given free of charge. That's why we made it available free of charge, to bring as many as we can. But we understand that there's great harvest coming too. So many, every nation, tribe, of tongue will stand in Jerusalem. It says in Revelation 7. We believe for that. That's why we don't have a lot of time to mess around, play around, figure it out. We need to bring people to their fullness of their faith before it is too late. Because when Mashiach comes, this will be a big surprise. When Yeshua finally reveal itself, even to us. Even to us. Pastor Biltz, you want to take now the
Sure. I believe it's in Isaiah 25 where God says he's going to remove the veil that is over all nations. Every nation is veiled to some extent right now. Now, when you ask what will happen to those from the nations, I believe, are you talking about obviously believers, maybe Christians rather than heathen. But if you remember in Zechariah, there's going to be a lot of people from the nations who survived the tribulation. And so there could be, I mean, I never would play God. Everybody is God's child, and it's it's up to him who lives, who dies. But I believe we may find a lot of Christians who survived the tribulation, who now during the millennial reign get to learn how to be properly grafted in by Messiah himself.
Well, I certainly hope that you're right, actually. I must say, I hope you're right. But I say there is a big judgment coming upon the nations. Read the Bible. It's time for us to prepare the nations. That's the bottom line.
Yep.
So, this is a good one. Again, great questions this afternoon. And I see the numbers just continue to go up and up. How far can one go adopting the Jewish identity as a Gentile that feared the God of Israel, especially as a woman? I've been ostracized by believers, feeling convicted to cut my head, as an example. Wow, that's a good question for you to answer. That is the $1 million question. How far?
Do you want to start there and then I'll go? Why don't you start and then I'll finish up?
I will go, and I'm just going to give you the answer from the rabbis. You like it, you like it. You don't, you don't. In Tractate Nedarim 30, page B, we read a very interesting story. The rabbi quote and said that the Torah that we study today will be forgotten in the day of Mashiach. So they asked the question, then what's the value in studying something that will be forgotten? And here's the analogy they give. They give an analogy of a baby in the womb. When a baby is in the womb, he's practicing for 9 months. And when he come out, he has to learn everything brand new. But they say that although he learned everything new, there is some sort of a cognitive recollection of something that is done in his womb. The same I will say to you today. If what you do in a matter of observance, number one, bring merit, not to you, but for the house of Israel. Number two, help you and to the world around yourself to be prepared, then do more of it. The problem is that many Gentiles are taking orthopractic observances, not for Israel, not for Zion, not for Messiah, but for themselves. So rather than asking the question, how much I should do or not do, the question should be, what is your motivation? Who do you impact? All those Orthodox Messianic Gentiles, a lot of them are proud,
Yes,
arrogant, angry, hateful. That's not a reason to be in the Torah. I'm sorry. I would like to see those who practice Torah among the nations who show the fruit of the Spirit. That's, to me, would be an indication, hey, you're on the right path. Like you mentioned, the covering the head. Okay, you cover your head, but what is the purpose behind this? Is it bringing division? It's bringing contention? Or is it bringing wholeness and unity to the body of Messiah? So I want to shift everybody thinking. It's not what you do or you don't do. It's the impact that you have on the greater bride, which is Israel. Pastor Biltz?
You said it. That's exactly what I was going to say. It all depends on the motivation.
Yeah, that's it. So Mercedes, I would say examine your heart. And I would say it to every Gentile who's watching us before you are running to lay tefillin. Here we go. You know, it's my tefillin. You know how many requests we're getting from Gentiles for tefillin? Okay, you want to lay tefillin? Study about it first. Get a conviction from the Ruach HaKodesh that God wants you to do it, and then move forward, okay? This is important. Here we go. Yolanda from Italia, our chief translator of the Night of the Bride, want to ask you, how Gentiles have to be grafted to the house of Israel? Do they have to follow Jews in all mitzvot, or only the Noachite law? Are you a Noachite, man?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
You know the arguments we've had with somebody.
Yeah, you are not a Noachite, for crying out loud. This is crazy. This is absurd. Yolanda asking a similar question. I mean, how do we practice? So here, I'm going to give an answer, Pastor Biltz. It is better to do less and do it right than to do more and do it wrong. There are two things I will challenge you, Yolanda, to do. Number one, learn the meaning. Learn the meaning of the mitzvah, okay? Don't run to do it because it's what Jews do. Learn it. Number two, pray, okay? But number three, whatever you do it in accordance for the house of Israel. You know how many problems we'll fix if we don't change calendars and we don't change halacha? There is Judaism. It's a box. It's a frame. You're not under that as a non-Jew. If you decide to go into it, please understand, do whatever you do perfectly with the house of Israel. But it's a slow process. Don't make your own house. Do not build your own house. I've been in a congregation recently. They decided to come with their own parashot cycle. So now they have a different cycle than the Jewish cycle. And I said, this is crazy. This is another form of replacement theology, you know? So that would be my answer. What do you think, Pastor Biltz?
Well, again, it's a very broad stroke. Do they have to follow Jews in all the mitzvot? Probably many of the Jews don't follow any of the mitzvot. Yeah. So which Jews are you talking about? You know, and then even within the Orthodox, a lot of them have their own different versions on how it's to be kept. And so for me, the one Jew I want to follow is Yeshua. And there's a reason why a lot of the commandments weren't given in great detail. For example, the farmers not to cut the corners of the field. It doesn't say if the corner of the field is 1 inch or 1 mile. There was a great latitude according to the heart, how much of that corner of the field that you wanted to leave for the widows and the orphans. And within these mitzvot, a lot of them you can't do anyway. If you're a woman, you can't do the laws of a priest. So you have to realize probably 90% of mitzvot you can't do anyway. But the ones you do, there is also some latitude, but it has to be from the heart. It has to be the motivation.
That's it. It starts with your kavanah. I said kavanah. I will go one step a little bit as a Pharisee with Pastor Biltz. Learn the details, but start with the heart and the Holy Spirit. Yes. Miguel asked the question. We're going to have to take only 2 or 3 more questions because the numbers keep on going up and up and up, and the questions just piling up, and we have to prepare for Shabbat. But here you go. Miguel asking, Pastor Biltz, do you believe right now that the system, world religion system, are being destroyed and shaken prophetically right now?
Well, I believe in one sense, it's always been built on sinking sand, and it's always a crumbling system. And we know from Daniel, there's going to be a big rock going to come and hit it, and it's going to completely crumble. But it is being built. In one sense, while it's crumbling, it is being built, this one world system, one world government, but it isn't going to last at all.
Yeah, I agree. Miguel, I'm going to answer this in one sentence because it's Siddur to be the same authority of Torah. First of all, 90% of the Siddur are the word of the Torah. They're scriptures. Almost the entire Siddur is scriptures. The Siddur is Siddur. The Torah is the Torah. And the Torah is the word of God. Okay, let me make it very, very clear. Deneen asked you a question, Pastor Biltz. How do you quantify being spiritually ready? How can you check yourself? What a beautiful question.
Great. I don't look at it in terms of quantification as much as qualification. Within Christianity, you have taught by those who believe in Calvinism that Jesus died on the cross only for those that he knew were going to be saved, not for the whole world. Well, it wasn't the quantity, it was the quality. It was who died for us. And I think for us, what we have to work on, even as Rabbi Shapira said, it's better to do less right than a whole bunch wrong. And for me, it's not about quantity. It's about the quality of the relationship.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. Friends, we are almost out of time. I just want to show you what's ahead. So first of all, I want everybody to be praying for Pastor Mark Biltz. I want to show you the schedule that is coming upon us. This has been such a incredible time here with Pastor Biltz, and we have still a week to get ready to prepare the bride. Here you go, guys. If you go to the website, and first of all, I want to show you. If you go bottom, and if you're watching us from El Shaddai, you can go to El Shaddai. They already linked. You can download it. You can already click download and get in 9 languages. The rest of them are coming later on the next 48 hours. But here, online schedule. Next Friday night, starting 10 p.m. Central. That's 8 p.m. Pacific. Joshua Aaron, Jonathan Bernice, the Night of the Bride. And Pastor Mark Biltz is going to address us with this important message immediately after the Night of the Bride, the 10 Commandments. Has the bride made herself ready? Pastor Biltz, if you want to give a people, we have 1 week before Shavuot, less than a week. What people can take with them to this Shabbat to start to prepare themselves spiritually for Shavuot, etc. What you would want people to think about? Prepare for your message, prepare for this event, prepare for this. Maybe you can give us kind of a final statement.
Sure. I would say have them read the Song of Songs. There's only like 8 chapters. I would love to have everyone read it because I'm going to go through it, and it's going to be from a perspective you have never heard before. Believe me, with the way I teach the Song of Songs is unlike anybody I've ever heard it taught. So that would be the main thing, is to prepare your heart. And also read 1 Samuel 8, where God was rejected as king. And realize how important it is that they rejected God himself to rule and reign over them. As all of you know, it was on Shavuot, okay, that God entered into this marriage covenant. He was to be their king. But when you read 1 Samuel, the first 8 chapters, you're going to find that it was also on Shabbat they rejected God as their king and wanted a king like all the other nations.
Well, I can't wait. Friends, here's what you need to do before the Shabbat. Couple of things ahead of us. Today's going to be a crazy busy day. At 4 o'clock, 4:30 Central, Worldwide Lunch, Portuguese, a big Portuguese broadcast is coming up. After the Portuguese broadcast, 6 p.m. Kabbalat Shabbat with Chazan Gordon. 9:30 at night, India, together a joint broadcast with Pastor Joseph John. This is all happening just today, which leads us to tomorrow. Big celebration with the Dutch team, big celebration with the team from Brazil, which will lead us to Sunday. Big celebration with Indonesia. All of these are coming up. And what you need to do is to go right now and download The Night of the Bride and take this link. Everybody right now, put it on your wall, shavuot.shuvu.tv. I love what Pastor Biltz brought to us today. We are getting ready. Messianic Judaism have a calling. Christians have a calling. Normative Judaism has a calling. And we are preparing together. We appreciate your prayers. We're so thankful for your support. And I hope this you're rejoicing that we're making history right now together. Jew and Gentile alike, preparing this bride. We can't wait to see you tomorrow. Shabbat morning services early in the morning, and tonight, and ultimately in the night of the bride. Wishing you all blessed Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom. See you in Kabbalat Shabbat. Le'itlaot, everybody.